Alrighty, guys. So, I am going to be sharing my story of remote viewing with the CIA and surviving that. I did end up in a mental institution hospital. But okay, so I just pressed record and I decided this is what I was going to do. So I do need to get a little bit of information so that I can make it coherent for the audience. I'm just going to start by introducing myself because maybe this video will reach people who are not part of my regular subscribers. However, we are going to pull some information, and this is a document as well that you can find on online from the Central Intelligence. Um, okay, so let me pause this. Alrighty, so I'm going to give you a little bit of background, although that I was born into some things that I will not disclose or talk about on camera. If you know anything about gang stalking or have been involved or affiliated with any government or corporations that are considered to be higher ups, you know that there are certain individuals that are inclined, that they do keep an eye out for, and from the day that you're born they know who you are. They keep track of you. They will put obstacles in your way so that they see how you recover or how well you do with what word am I looking for, how well you do with, this is them playing as well, confusion magic. And just so you know that your government does magic on y'all need to know this. Wake up. Hello. um Brain fart. And if I have a lot of those, I'll explain that too. That is also a tool. They will do random memory wipes, especially when you're talking about certain topics where I am a very focused person and I even have now the notes in front of me and it's hard for me to keep my train of thought. Yeah, I have to call my energy back because I'm sure that they don't want this information out there. I don't care. It's public. And more than that, time's up. Find something safe to do. Y'all played with my life enough. So, although I forget what I was saying, I'm going to just give a definition for remote viewing. So, remote viewing is the practice of gathering information about a distant or unseen target using the mind alone. It was initially developed as a structured and disciplined practice, particularly by the US military and intelligence agencies during the Cold War, aka the Stargate Project. You can do some research on that. So the methodology for it, remote viewing is a learned skill, often following a specific protocol. The viewer focuses on a target, and in this case, I would be the target, me amongst other people, a lot of other gifted individuals out in the world. They do keep tabs on us. It focuses on the target, which they usually have little or no information about, and describes details such as location, appearance, or even events happening at that location. It's not based on intuition, but rather a systematic approach to gather data. So, the scientific approach with remote viewing is often approached in a scientific manner, and it has been studied under controlled conditions with the idea that anyone can be trained to do it. So they do use other psychics, and this is what you would call selling out, to target other people or other people who are not so hip to their gifts. They will get them on board in a way that they are exploiting the natural nature of those who are spiritually inclined or gifted. So um, where was I? Where was I? It's not based on intuition, but rather a systematic approach. I read that. So practitioners work from more of a empirical perspective, relying on processes to access the information. The focus primarily deals with viewing distant locations or events in real time, sometimes across time, past, or future, without needing physical presence. Remote viewers don't rely on spirit guides or energy readings, but rather their own mental discipline. So, a famous example of this is the military's use of remote viewing during the Stargate project, where individuals tried to gather intelligence on foreign nations using only their minds. And a little about myself, I am Jamaican, amongst some other things, but Just based on bloodline, that is a reason that you could be targeted if you come from certain lineages or bloodlines, and the people who came before you were notorious for doing certain things. Rather, it was the intel that they had, which we do need to keep in mind. Prior to all of this being open information, a lot of this was considered to be hidden knowledge. It's no longer hidden because they're not able to control people in the same ways. We have technology and we have other people who are speaking out, and so others are finding safe spaces to tell their stories and to be open about what they're experiencing. Remote viewing, from my perspective, is something that will sound insane, BAT ish, crazy to someone who doesn't have a trained ear or someone who's not privy to, spiritual topics or verbiage. So, if you don't know what a psychic is, which I would be considered one, psychics are individuals who claim to have innate abilities to perceive information hidden from the normal senses. These abilities can include clairvoyance, which is seeing things beyond normal vision, clairaudience, hearing things beyond the normal range, and more. So, a little bit about myself: I do possess all and more clairs than we know. So, I didn't get a chance to claim anything. I was actually born this way, and as a child, my gifts were revealing themselves to other people who had those eyes on me, especially in the environment, very cult like, that I grew up in. And even just being from the islands, there are certain terms that describe someone of my stature or someone of my capabilities, okay? So we're following. So, with psychic abilities are generally seen as innate or intuitive. They often tap into information through intuition, spiritual energy, divine guidance, or sometimes with the help of spirit guides or reading a person's energy field / aura. Unlike remote viewers, psychics don't always follow strict protocols but rely on their natural abilities and the information that comes to them spontaneously. So, psychics typically operate within a more spiritual or mystical framework. They may interpret the energy around a person, connect with the spirits, or provide insights into personal situations. While they may gather information on distant events or people, it's often done in a way that connects to the person's life or emotional state. Psychics usually offer personal insights, emotional or spiritual guidance, or predictions about the future. Their focus is more on helping people with life decisions or providing healing. And so, there have been well-known psychics that get their recognition, but there are people who don't believe in it, so that's okay. And there's people who can vouch and say, "Oh my gosh, this person changed my life," or "This person helped me unlock something," or "This person said something that there's no way they couldn't have known." So the key differences that we want to remember here is that in nature, remote viewing is a learned skill, it's systematic, and it's scientific. So it means that if you are someone who's inclined and you can be used to carry out their mission, they are going to give you a systematic way of doing things, and they're going to ask you to tap into the field of people whose natural nature as a psychic is innate, intuitive, or spiritual. They are taking these things and they are putting a formula to it. Like I said, that's a key difference. So, where remote viewing follows protocol and is structured, someone with psychic abilities or considers himself as a psychic relies on intuition, energy, or spirit. A remote viewer's focus is accessing information about the distant target or the event, and a psychic's focus would be personal reading, spiritual guidance, or just spiritual growth altogether. Remote viewing, the approach is empirical and sometimes is used in intelligence or research, and for a psychic, their approach is often mystical and related to healing or personal insight. Remote viewing on a philosophical level focuses on mental discipline, and psychic ability focuses on the connection to higher realms. Okay, so there were things as a kid that I was able to just see, and I would convey that to adults, but because I was more in a religious setting, it was not always met with, open ears. Although they would listen, it wouldn't be open dialogue. So where I would be asking, what is this or what is that? As someone coming from a non-denominational Christian background, I was met with, "Oh, don't worry about that. Uh, I wouldn't say that's not of God, but in a nutshell, that's not of God. Don't worry about it. So as I'm getting older and my gifts are increasing, I'm going through things that to me at the time just seem like my life is terrible. I don't live the best life. I'm constantly sick. My energy is constantly being manipulated. So as I am getting into my teen years, someone who was a scholar, an avid learner, very active within the community, on several levels, I'm realizing things about myself happen in certain patterns. So now that I'm able to identify these patterns, it's more so like, okay, I can use my brain power, which I was instructed to do, which I could say my spirit guides. I've always been connected to them from as early as I can remember. I even had imaginary friends that would say things, and it wouldn't be anything destructive. And this is how I know who I am and what I do is legit, because I don't have intrusive thoughts where I'm seeking to harm, to put people in jaded positions. I don't do anything out of power trip. I'm not seeking excess amount of, notoriety or power in this life. I'm simply just living. At this point, I didn't create a mission statement or any type of real trajectory for myself until 2011, and I put it into play 2012, which is basically my mission is to spread love and light, because it proves to be more effective than being on hate trains or feeding off of negativity. I grew up with pastors for parents, so I've always been a little bit more woke in terms of spirituality, and that paired with not living a very secular life can get very tricky. So when we are dealing with, intelligence agencies and corporations that look into people that are gifted, you have to understand that they're not coming in black suits all the time. They look like your friends sitting at lunch, but your friend doesn't know the reason why they're asking you a certain question is because their energy is being tapped into to access information about you. And that's not to be paranoid or to make anybody paranoid. That's more to say that you don't know who you're dealing with until you know who you're dealing with. And so I would meet people who would just say random things to me, come up in broad daylight and be like, oh, this, that, the next. And I'm like, I know how to keep my cool. So it's just like, okay, thanks. But once I started to really recognize the patterns altogether, I stopped getting sick. I learned about energy siphoning. I learned about energy transference. So like if an adult would hug me in a church space, I would literally feel them take that energy from me and be like, I feel so energized. I will never forget my first time experiencing that. And I was like, I feel winded. And I literally felt my life force be taken from me. And this is why I've now separated myself from religion. Just as far as certain doctrines go, I don't feel that I need to be sharing spaces or rubbing shoulders, shaking hands, or exchanging personal interactions based off of shared community. I don't want to hug. I don't want to touch your hand. I don't want you to pray for me. I don't want you to put your hands on me. I don't want any of that. But outside of that, you kind of just realize that they are sending people to ask you certain things. And I've never been a secretive person, but I do pay attention to why people ask me things. So I had people coming up to me and just starting certain conversations that kind of sparked me to reflect and think, okay, this is coming up. That's interesting. Such and such would ask me that. But fast forward 2016, I had just started like spiritual advising, getting into helping people. So when I was in school, I would just talk to my associates and they would be like, how do you know that, Michaela? Like, who are you? Do you work for them people? Like, how do you know that? And so I would just hear it. In the same way, like I said, I possess all the clairs. I see, I hear. That's something that's highly sought after. And especially when you grow up into religious spaces, they will auction off your energy. They will sell you to the highest bidder. I'm not joking. They will say, oh, come look at this, come look at that. And although it's 2024, a lot of the things that I'm talking about are not necessarily taboo. They're more openly spoken about in this day and age. It's still at a point where ignorance pretty much runs the general public. If I'm to sit down and, effectively articulate and explain myself, then okay, there are people with open minds who will still hear you out, but on a more natural process. it's easier for people to be like, I don't deal with that, or I don't know about that, and dismiss you altogether, than to kind of hear what you're going through. So here I was exhausting myself trying to explain to people the energies that I'm experiencing, the things that I'm seeing. Oh, and they started a witch hunt, burning me at the stake. I do rituals, I do that, and da 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 da. Oh, I heard it all. So now, um, I can't call this person's name, but I went to a location in New Mexico, military settings, and as soon as I'm about to tell this story, my mind is going blank. So yeah, I'm in New Mexico, and I get a file on my laptop. At the time, I have a MacBook, and the file opens up. It has my name on it. It says Michaela Laurie. It has some other information. I'm like, whoa, because I didn't click anything. I wasn't searching. I wasn't on the internet doing anything crazy. I was just on my laptop. And so now I see the energies are starting to be played with. My phone is ringing. 2 different people are calling. And so now my brain is starting to spin. This does not happen often. And more than that, before I took this trip to New Mexico, I had saw on Twitter and this is actually when I didn't pay attention to, like, general messages or warnings that other people would put out. Excuse me. Had to fix that lip gloss up for a second. But yeah, so I actually don't even know where I left off. New Mexico. So I'm not the type to pay attention to like general messages on Twitter. Not really my thing. So I glanced it and it was in the back of my head, but she was basically saying that a lot of you are going through upgrades right now that can land you in the hospital. So make sure you're grounding yourself and staying away from environments that are tricky or that will mess with your frequencies. Like, if you can, like, just stay inside right now. And of course, I didn't really have the option to stay back. It was personal family matter as to why I had to go. And on that night with the laptop, I seen the file. 2 separate people were calling my phone. The things that they were saying were very telling, and I'm not a paranoid or a person. Like, I remember getting psychiatric care after the fact, and one of the first questions was like, do you see everything as a sign? I'm not that kind of person. I can see something. I've been seeing angel numbers from my childhood, 4 or 5. I always used to tell my dad, like, oh, look, it's 1212 or it's 222. So while angel numbers are getting popular, this is something that I've always known to be true for myself. I didn't really have a meaning, but there are things that I've always seen, so I don't get caught up in the hype of, oh my gosh, this is new, or look at that, look at this. So I'm not psyching myself out with what's happening, but I'm realizing the synchronicities, or the can't even call it irony, the irony of the conversation versus what populated on my screen, and I feel my mind spinning. But again, keep in mind, I am on military land, and so I don't put it past them. That was part of the reason. So on top of that, I also did readings for a couple of military personnel, and I'm gonna put it in layman terms, but don't you typically, unless they are really good people or close to you, I don't ever advise using cards while being under the influence. You do open yourself up to demonic possession, and that was a moment where a entity tried to overtake my body. I do remember it happening, except I was blacked. I didn't black out, but I knocked out. So that is when that happened, and upon waking up, it was like I was not fully in my body, and it didn't register until I was leaving. And once it did register, that's when the remote viewing like turned itself all the way up. So boom, I do the reading. There was alcohol involved, so for me, I see vessels. I can see someone's physical appearance, but what I'm seeing on their face is the expression of their soul. And that doesn't scare me, because if you grew up religious or grew up seeing demons be cast out of people in church or religious settings, that's not anything like or at least for me, that's not anything scary or anything to be afraid of. So because I'm used to it, I'm not thinking anything of it. But I do know where the specific energy was targeting me from. And at that time, I did not follow my spiritual hygiene slash protocol to keep my energy clear. I just thought I was, fly, young, poppin', a good reader. I'm trying to show these people I'm legit. They know I'm legit because they're blown away. But that doesn't mean that the entities that reside in them, with me on duty to release them or help them release themselves from those entities, I put myself on the line in that way. So anyways, the file opens, I get the phone calls. I wake up the next morning, and at the time I had a lot of jewelry in. I took out, I had jewelry on. Ripped off all. I didn't even take it off. I didn't unclip it. I yanked my chains off of me. I broke them. I took my anklets off. I had two. I had my nipples pierced at the time. I took them out. But that's not like me. I got all of these things because I wanted to. And in that moment, I'm feeling like it's the end of the world. I need to look up something really quick. This is what I was hearing in my head. And I know it's remote viewing because of this. So let me find. Okay, so this is from Exodus. I didn't hear the verse, but it's like something. And growing up in church, I've heard the Bible front to back. I'm not a person who knows scriptures as to quote them, but I do know I'm divinely led, because a lot of the time I will hear a scripture, even when I'm talking to someone, look at the scripture and it be directly correlated to what we're speaking on, and I will share with them, and they're like, wow, I needed to hear that. I'm led in that way, and I've always been. So I didn't think anything when I heard this, except it put me into a flight response where I was trying to, like, I don't know if I was trying to get out of my body, but the things I was feeling wasn't right. So basically, I heard the sound of the bells will be heard when he enters the holy place before the Lord, and when he comes out, so that he will not die. So I didn't sleep that night. And when I woke up, I heard bells ringing. And mind you, I've been there for a couple of days now. I didn't hear any bells. I don't know if this is something that happens, but I heard the bells. And I was like, I looked out, I'm like, why are there bells ringing? And at this time, it had to be like wee into the morning, maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 in the morning. I was just up on my laptop. So now I'm like, oh no, this doesn't feel good. This feels very revelation-y. I don't know what's going on. Like, something is telling me I cannot get on that flight. I'm not going on the flight. My flight is in the morning, but I don't want to go on it. So my mom, being a minister, I asked her to pray for me when she woke up. I'm like, something doesn't feel right. Like, something feels off. So she prayed for me, and I put my headphones in to listen to some binaural frequencies, as well as an album that I liked, to try to calm my head down. The ride from New Mexico to the airport that I was flying out of in Texas was about an hour and some change. So I just closed my eyes for the ride, and I was trying to calm myself down. So we get to the airport. I'm ignoring what I'm hearing, but I get to the airport and it starts to get heavier. And at this specific airport, they had I forget, how do you call it? They had, I'm gonna find it. Okay, so yeah, I was not able to locate it like I wanted to. However, when I got to that airport, things started to go like more awry. So, my mom got me some Starbucks. Like, I drank some, and then I'm starting to hear things, and it wasn't my regular guides. It sounded like Caucasian males talking, and because I'm funny, I decided that I'm gonna listen to their instructions and I'm gonna see what it is they're trying to get me to do. So at the time, they wanted me to go on Tumblr. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna play a game. I can hear you. I'm sure y'all know I can hear you. So I'm following what they say, and so I decided I was only gonna follow for a little, and then as soon as I stopped, and mind you, when I say Caucasian males, like, I'm hearing them audibly. They're like, yeah, she's one of them. She's one of them. They're instructing me. They're like, scroll, go left, da da da. That's not how I use my phone. That's not what I'm normally hearing. So then as soon as I said like no, and I did what I wanted to do, I heard them shut the session down completely. And that's when my mind started to spin. I walked up to this guy. I can't call him like a rabbi or anything, but he had some kind of garment on, and he just looked like someone safe to talk to. And when I went up to him, I'm like, are you able to have a conversation right now? And he said he was on the phone. And I was like, it's urgent. Do you mind if I talk to you? He was like, no, I'm on an important call. And then there was something that happened to where there was a lady sitting next to me. And while I'm going through what I'm going through, pretty much losing my mind, I feel my mind going like fast, really fast. And I said something, and this lady says to my mom, like along the lines of what happened to her when she was blah, blah, blah. I heard it, but I'm trying to regain control of my mind. So I'm like, okay, yeah, something is going on. So anyways, I ended up missing 2 flights. After they shut down the remote viewing, it was like a period of me trying to access my own brain. It's not that I got locked out, but it's like I couldn't get full control of what was going on. And so it's like I shut it down, but it's like I had no access to where I was trying to go in my own brain. And again, the thing that I was looking for in this particular airport, they had like student centers and conference centers. Airports have always given me eerie vibes. I flew a lot as a child and into my adult years, but just airports in general, there's so much energy there. And I know it's dealing with, aircraft and aerodynamics and just being in the air. But again, airports are portals, in my humble opinion. So do with that information as you will. So anyways, now I've missed the 2 flights. It's time for me to try to get on another flight. I call one of my homeboys. He is actually in the NFL now, and this is important because a lot of the people that I am connected to, they have went away to different organizations, or they've become a part of different things to where their trust is with them, or the things that they go through are kind of overseen by other people. But this is someone that I consider to be a close and trusted friend. So I called them like, hey, do you know anybody out here that can come get me from where I'm at? Because again, I said I wasn't getting on this flight. I just knew I was going to die. The plane wasn't supposed to make it. Something was going to happen. So now I'm communicating with them. They call back, and another friend who at the time was in California attending Duke, and they kind of grounded me in the moment and got me back on track. And they're like, all right, little homie, just like, calm down, get your mind right, get some water, take some deep breaths. So I try to do just that. Then my mom takes over, and I just keep repeating to myself, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. She has my ex call me. I'm trying to make plan. At this point, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Everybody at this point is opposition, which if you know anything about gang stalking or just how Central Intelligence work, they will use the vessels of those closest to you. And this is where you hear words like cloning or NPC come into play. It's not so direct, but it is valid. So they will use those closest to you to carry out their agenda of destroying you. So where I kept repeating the road to hell is paved with good intentions, I'm like, yeah, obviously y'all do not have my best interest, because I know what I'm hearing up here. I'm following God. And so boom, one more flight, I'm able to try to get on. I get onto the flight and I start losing my ish. I'm sure that somebody in the world has a recording, because I do remember it wasn't such a full flight, but this is all I saw. I'm losing my mind and people are literally recording. And that's just life. Not really, I don't care. That's not humiliating to me. But I did end up getting taken off of the flight and carried to this medical center. And I remember the doctor came in, he asked me what my name was. So I told him, and I told him based off of what I was directed to tell him via what I could hear. And I said Broham, as in like Brother Abraham. And that's how he said it. So although I said Broham, he repeated back to me, Brother Abraham, shut down this center and told me I will be okay. He said, you will be fine. And so from there, they started me on a medication called Seroquel, which, if you don't know what Seroquel is, it is a medicine used to treat, I don't want to say it wrong, it's used to treat schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and depression. And so at this point, on medical terms, they have labeled me schizo, which I can understand medically why I do hear things, but when I go for psychiatric care, they also make it a point to remind me it's not their place, or it's not ethical for them to discredit my spiritual and my religious beliefs. So while on paper it looks one way, what I subscribe to on a personal level doesn't, it doesn't, it doesn't negate what I'm trying to convey to them. So, anyways, that was an extended stay. When I got out, I went back to New Mexico, and that's when things started to go crazy. I do want to mention that while I was in the hospital, this is when I really started to understand not that there are negatives for everything, but that there are positives for everything. So while I was in the hospital, I was, still in my little brain moment. And there were things happening with my technology and just around me that were alluding to the fact that I am safe. So I decided to trust my better judgment and lean more into the energies that seem more, protective, or guiding me in a way that's not detrimental to my well-being and livelihood. They had brought out some documents. I had a friend in Texas, and she actually worked at that hospital. So she walked in the room while they were trying to get me to sign these papers. And while I'm looking at the papers, the only thing I was able to glance, it was like a lot of papers, um, basically saying like I'm a recipient for something, and I didn't get to read it, but the lady was trying to rush me to sign it, and my associate slash friend at the time, she was like, oh, if she's not gonna have time to read it, then she can't sign it. And the lady was like, oh well, I leave here at 5, so she really needed to sign it. She really needed to sign it now. It was just fishy things going on. So anyways, yeah, I get back to New Mexico. I am getting a full kind of control on my life. I think I was there for a little over a month, but I do understand the CIA works with a lot of criminals, known and unknown. They protect them, they work alongside with them, they paint pictures to the public to make it seem like things are happening that are not really happening, just to have control over, people's perception of what reality is. And I got a phone call from someone basically telling me their higher ups have intel on me and that they think that we should work together. And blase, blase, blase. This is not someone that I had a close connection with. I was actually surprised how they even got my number. I changed my number, so I don't know how they got it. And I basically was like, people around me know more than they're letting on. And after that, I started to just kind of be on my P's and Q's as it comes to interacting with others. And so now it gets to the gang stalking part. I'd be out and people will say little things to me. And strangers are strangers. A stranger might speak to you, but I'm telling you, the things that these people are saying, like, hello, such and such, or little things that if I was really crazy, I would tweak out. I would tweak. Anybody would tweak. Anybody would go insane. People in public are saying things to you that pretty much they shouldn't know, or you're in public and you're hearing a million different things at once. And it just showed me that we are living in something that we have an idea of but don't fully understand. And it was only through certain experiences that I was able to put certain names to things, only to realize it's been going on my whole life and that I am a part of something much greater and much deeper. I can do a lot of other videos on some of my other experiences, especially as it relates to some big industry names and what the hell, I wanted to use the F word, what the hell happened after, mingling my energy amongst certain individuals. I'm hitting 34 minutes, but the story time all in all is my technology was compromised. I was mentally manipulated in public spaces, violated on so many different levels. And it gets to a place where you become numb because you understand that if you are to share these things with anybody outside of, say, a psychiatrist or you're a psychologist, you sound insane. And luckily, I've been able to come across online spaces that just by reading, not necessarily participating, make you know that you're not alone. And I love TikTok for this reason, because I know that there's other people that are gifted in similar capacities that are going through the same things and don't necessarily have an outlet to be so expressive or kind of share the things that they're going through, because they're isolated. So as we move into this era of the New World Order, and excuse me, burp for confirmation, we are in the New World Order right now. It's not going to look like what we think it looks like. The war is on our mind. And if you're not able to understand who you are and where you are on a personal level, your mind is easily, or your mind is very malleable in a way that your reality can be altered just like this. It doesn't take much for them to change your reality. So I hope that this message finds who it needs to find. If this is something you're experiencing, I do want to say at least reach out to one person and let them know what you're going through. Let them know that you're not suicidal. That's another thing that happened somehow, some way. And this is me making this verbally. I've tried to end myself once ever. And again, this goes back to remote viewing. I was instructed, I heard it as a child, to go and pick up pills and to take them, and I did. Ironically, I didn't go to school that day because I had a doctor's appointment, but by the time like I started to, I don't even know what I took, but by the time I started to be floozy and woozy, I had already went to the doctor's appointment, and the end of my night was at church, and I actually just ended up sleeping. And the next day, I believe my dad was like, "Don't you ever do that again." That's the only time I've ever tried to take myself out of here. What does I think it's Drake, never thoughts of suicide, I'm too alive. No, I had a red wristband on in the hospital, and when I asked, they're like, "Oh, we have you down for suicidal ideations." They're always going to try to pull that narrative to where you look insane. So remote viewing, MK Ultra, these are all things that I've been through, things that I am still getting a handle on, things that I am still navigating. But I feel like I'm at a place where I can share my story, where I can hopefully reach others who may be going through similar things, so that they know they're not alone. I don't share this to put fear or incite fear or chaos into anybody's reality. Understand that technology is your friend. If you are living a upstanding life, technology is your friend. If you are not living a life where the things you do are compromising to your reputation or who you show yourself to be to the world, technology is your friend. Document everything. It doesn't matter if you look crazy. It doesn't matter if people are giving you the side eye. That's actually their job, to make you recant, so that they're able to carry out their darker agendas of keeping humanity pretty much enslaved to technology and other things. It's easier for them to do things like remote viewing and playing these MK Ultra games on people when you don't understand what it is, or you don't understand the ways that technology is still developing. I want people to remember that this is just 2024. We are pretty much the first generation that is like, we didn't necessarily grow up with these devices, but we're growing up with these devices. So as technology is evolving, so is the way that humans interact with it. We get these new updates, we get these upgrades, and it's like, oh, cool, shiny, beep, beep, gadget, gadget. But as technology learns, so do we. And as we learn, technology learns. So we're training our phones, and our phones are training us. I train my laptop trains me. When you have a better understanding of that, it's easier to steer clear of energies that seek to like divert you off of your path. So for example, and I know this is off of a tangent, but I feel it's important to share. There's a lot more people saying like, I didn't even say that out loud. Did my phone read my mind? They're going to tell you no. They're never going to openly say like, hey, this is what we're doing with this piece of technology. There are things I never utter out of this mouth, but the moment I think it, I'm seeing an ad, I'm seeing something populate that alludes to the fact it was received on this end. So if you even believe in telepathy or anything of the sort, understand, and this is a call to action, to redefine or even refine the relationship that you have with technology, because it's not the way you think. Just because you're spoon fed something to think this is how it works does not mean that this is how it works. They can tell you anything. This is where I encourage people to learn and experience things for themselves, because it makes it easier to differentiate your own energy from outside energy that seeks to divert you from your path, that seeks to knock you off your pivot. And you don't have to fall into those categories simply because it's being presented to you. And that is where um, organizations, i.e., CIA, FBI, whatever else, they will use technology. And technology to me can even go as far as music to puppet you. And it's not in the way you think where it's so diabolical. But if I was to tell you that my whole game plan is to trick you as a person with free will into your own demise, you'd probably laugh. You would probably be like, yeah, right, I'd see that coming a mile away. But it's fed to us in a way we don't even realize it's happening. And it's not to beat yourself up or to be super radical, but each one, reach one, teach one. So if I'm able to reach you, you're able to teach something to the next person who can reach another person, and the cycle completes. But we do have to open up and start having these conversations. And I feel like it's appropriate with a lot of the things that are coming to light right now, just even in and the industry, especially around entertainment. A lot of things are coming to light. And I do speak about this a lot online, just about spiritual hygiene and protecting yourself. A lot of popular faces and household names are a part of things much more sinister than the human mind can even really fathom or more care to explain. It's easier for them to push those that they oppress into isolation, into suicide, into taking themselves out, or just completely silencing them, or letting them use their free will um, to benefit from their pain. So indulging in substances that really alter the mind. And once you experience a level of pain, it will distort your ability to tell what's real from what's not. So you can convey a truth, but it sounds, so far fetched, or you lose, you lose your focus when you're telling these things. So I would say just listen to what people have to say. I know that everybody isn't credible per se, but there is beauty in hearing what others have been through, because you never know who it can help. A lot of things are not just targeted for one certain people or one group of people. So where we hear things like, MK Ultra and remote viewing, I've had people make comments like, who do you think you are? Why are you so special? Why do you experience that? And we don't know anything about this. Because when you know, or when you know, you know. So even on that tangent, don't be so quick to dismiss people based off of what it is they're sharing with you. You never know who's going through what, or who is a quote unquote victim of what, just because they don't share it. I carry a lot of the things that I have been through well, on top of the fact that I did for a good period of time believe that certain things were normal just based off of my religious backing. But there are a lot of things that are being exposed right now, and what they do to certain people and how they do it. And in order for these things to come to an end, we actually have to openly speak about them and get others on board to what's going on. When we have these parasocial relationships with celebrities, and even just industries as a whole, parasocial as heck. Celebrity culture, before we would have to wait to see what they're doing, how they're doing it. But now we have technology and social media, so we have easier access to people. And in that breath, what we would think is for one subset of people actually applies to a broader spectrum of others. Excuse me, burp for confirmation. Um, so yeah, it's more so being aligned with an energy than having a title. So there are celebrities who are gifted, and they use their gifts via music, and they share their gifts with us through their ability to articulate, to express, to resonate sonically with their crowd. So now imagine all the people who live in this world with, you know, Hollywood dreams or any type of dreams that don't have resources or don't have the tools to get where they are. There are people who will see them and they will use them as energetic pawns to push their agendas, and in the same breath take away the life force or feed off the life force of someone who actually sits in that energy. And you'll be surprised to know a lot of your faves are not really even as talented or hip to what they speak on, the things that they do. They are wearing the energy of someone else whose face is not in the public. So you might have someone like me who now has like 17 followers. I follow 10 people, but we got some big names trying to wear my energy. We have some big names trying to walk in my energetic signature, who are trying to take on the attributes and the likeliness of Michaela Laurie. And to a regular person, it's going to be like, who wants to copy you? Who are you? You thinking your ego's too big. You're thinking too big of yourself. You're thinking too high of yourself. No, this is reality, and it's been done for a long time. And it's not always some voodoo. Ooh, this is done through thoughts. This is done through writing. It's done in systematic ways, and the more you know is the more you know. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I want to make a conspiracy theorist. I'm not. They're the things that I speak on are the things that I have experienced, and I do understand that a lack of experience causes people to write off certain ideologies or just certain ways of living because it sounds far-fetched. But it sounds far-fetched until it is you, and until it is you, I suggest that you keep your mouth and your mind off of the people who are conveying to you the things that they have been through. There's energetic repercussions for doing so. But again, I hope this message find who it needs to find. I am pushing an hour. So I'm gonna go, and I hope that this opens up some dialogue now or in the future. And sending love, sending light. If this is something you're going through, reach out. I believe my email is in the comments. The comments are open as well. I'm definitely open to talking with you guys or just hearing your experiences of things that might have affected you, and orchestrated from people slash organizations that want us to trust them. So yeah, that is my experience. I hope that this was a great story time, and I'll probably share more. Yeah, I'll do another video, and it's going to be about beauty magic and the way that they will harvest your energy to do certain things. But later.